In the perpetual twilight of lunar base echo, Commander Sarah Chen stood motionless before the holographic display, her reflection ghosting across real-time footage of Earth's outer defense grid. 3 months of absolute silence from the void had set everyone on edge. The Vraxian scout ships had appeared without warning, vanished without trace, and left humanity wondering when, not if, they would return. "Tell me something interesting, Dr. Patel," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. The base's acoustic dampeners made even the softest sounds carry with perfect clarity. The scientist manipulated his tablet, and new data streams cascaded across the display. "Their biosignatures are unique, Commander. The Vraxians process sound differently than any Earth species. Their neural pathways show extreme sensitivity to certain frequency ranges we can replicate." Sarah's lips curved into a slight smile. Humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of war, but it was their mastery of silence that would prove most devastating. The Whisper Protocol wasn't just a defensive strategy, it was an entirely new way of fighting. "Status of the Ghost Fleet," she asked, turning to her XO, Lieutenant James Morrison. "All ships maintaining quantum silence, Commander. 30 vessels, scattered across the solar system, each one invisible to conventional sensors. The Vraxians won't see us coming, or hear us, for that matter." The humans had learned from their brief encounter with the scout ships. The aliens' technology was impressive, energy weapons that could vaporize mountains, shields that could withstand nuclear strikes. But their reliance on advanced sensors had become their weakness. They never expected to face an enemy that could simply disappear. A soft chime echoed through the command center. "Multiple contacts," announced the sensor officer. "Massive energy signatures at the system's edge. They're back." The Vraxian invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace like a meteor shower of gleaming metal. Their ships were biological marvels, semi-organic vessels that pulsed with internal light. Leading them was a behemoth of a vessel that dwarfed everything else, the command ship of High Marshal Kth Rix, self-proclaimed scourge of 1,000 systems. "They're broadcasting," the communications officer reported. "System-wide, all frequencies." Sarah nodded. "Let's hear their demands." The voice that filled the command center was deep, resonant, and dripping with contempt. "Humans of Earth," High Marshal Kth Rix announced, "your system now belongs to the Vraxian Empire. Your technology is primitive, your defenses inadequate. Surrender now, and you may serve as productive members of our society. Resist, and we will remind you why 100 species tremble at the mention of our name." Sarah exchanged glances with her command staff. The aliens' arrogance was exactly what they'd hoped for. "Deploy Phase 1, she ordered. "Let's show them why silence is humanity's deadliest weapon." Across the solar system, 30 ships of the Ghost Fleet activated their quantum drives. Based on technology that had been classified for decades, these vessels could manipulate spacetime itself, bending light and sound around them. To the Vraxians' advanced sensors, they simply didn't exist. The first sign that something was wrong came when 3 Vraxian frigates on the fleet's outer edge suddenly lost power. Their organic hulls went dark, their crews trapped in perfect silence as specialized EMPs fried their neural networks. Before the aliens could react, the ships were already being towed away by invisible forces. "They're responding exactly as predicted," Dr. Patel observed, monitoring the Vraxian communications. "Their hierarchical command structure is breaking down. They can't process the idea of an enemy they can neither see nor hear." Sarah watched as confusion spread through the alien fleet. The Vraxians' biological ships were connected through a complex network of sonic resonances, a network that was now being systematically disrupted by precisely calibrated frequency attacks. "Phase 2, she commanded. "Begin the Whisper campaign." Across every frequency the Vraxians used, human quantum computers began broadcasting. Not threats or demands, but whispers. Fragments of sound that played on the aliens' unique auditory processing. The effect was immediate and devastating. Vraxian crews began reporting hallucinations, their biorhythms disrupted by sounds that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. High Marshal Ktrix's voice boomed across the frequencies again, but this time there was an edge of uncertainty. "Show yourselves, humans. Face us in honorable combat." Sarah keyed her own communication channel. When she spoke, her voice was calm, quiet, and seemed to come from within the Vraxian command ship itself. "You entered our system expecting to find primitive savages. Instead, you found ghosts. We are humanity, High Marshal. We don't need to shout to be deadly." The next few hours demonstrated exactly what humanity had learned about fighting superior forces. The Ghost Fleet struck from impossible angles, using concentrated sonic pulses to disable Vraxian ships without firing a single conventional shot. The aliens' biological vessels proved exceptionally vulnerable to specific frequency combinations, their organic components reacting like crystal glasses to precisely pitched sounds. "They're falling back," Morrison reported, satisfaction evident in his voice. "First wave is in full retreat." Sarah nodded, but kept her expression neutral. This was just the beginning. "Send word to all Ghost Fleet vessels. Phase 3 preparations begin immediately. The Vraxians will return with countermeasures, and when they do, we'll show them that humanity's mastery of silence is just the first of our surprises." As the alien fleet retreated in disarray, Sarah studied the tactical display. The Vraxians had arrived expecting to find exactly what humans had shown them for the past 3 months, a primitive species with predictable defenses. Instead, they'd encountered an enemy that turned their own advanced senses against them, that struck without being seen or heard, that transformed silence itself into a weapon. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them the Whisper Protocol exceeded expectations. But remind them, this was just the first movement in humanity's symphony of shadows." The stars seemed to shimmer as the last Vraxian ships vanished into hyperspace. In the command center of Lunar Base Echo, Commander Sarah Chen allowed herself a small smile. The real war hadn't even begun, but humanity had already proven one vital truth: in the vastness of space, the deadliest predators weren't the ones that roared, they were the ones that struck in perfect silence. The Vraxian High Command made their second approach with devastating thoroughness. Their fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, a wall of living metal that stretched across half the solar system. But this time, their ships pulsed with new organic growths, biological dampeners designed to counter humanity's sonic attacks. In the depths of Lunar Base Echo, Sarah Chen watched the tactical display with calculated interest. "They've adapted faster than expected," she noted, studying the modified alien vessels. "Thoughts, Dr. Patel?" The scientist's fingers danced across his holographic interface. "Their new defenses are impressive, but predictable. They've armored themselves against the last war, Commander. They still don't understand what they're really fighting." 3 weeks had passed since the first encounter, 3 weeks that humanity had spent preparing. The Ghost Fleet had doubled in size, each vessel now equipped with technologies that had remained hidden for decades. But the real advantage wasn't in the ships, it was in the minds controlling them. "Launch the Echoes," Sarah commanded. Across the solar system, hundreds of quantum beacons activated simultaneously. Each one projected a perfect holographic replica of Earth's defense fleet, complete with false energy signatures and communication patterns. The Vraxian response was immediate and devastating: to empty space. Their biological weapons lashed out at the Phantom fleet, massive energy beams cutting through sophisticated illusions while the real human ships watched in perfect silence. High Marshal Ktrix's voice thundered across all frequencies, but there was an edge to it now, a hint of desperation that hadn't been there before. "Your tricks will not save you, humans. We have conquered species far more advanced than yours. Your holograms cannot hide you forever." Sarah's response came as a whisper, seemingly from within the High Marshal's own command center. "Who said we were hiding? The Ghost Fleet struck from within the Vraxian formation itself. They had been there the whole time, their quantum drives bending reality around them. The aliens had prepared for sonic attacks, but they weren't ready for what came next. Initiate neural resonance, Sarah ordered. Dr. Patel activated a series of commands, and the real attack began. The Ghost Fleet began broadcasting on frequencies that the Vraxians couldn't consciously perceive, but their biological ships could. The living vessels started responding to phantom commands, their organic components confused by signals that mimicked their own neural patterns. Their fleet coordination is breaking down, Morrison reported, watching as the massive Vraxian formation began to splinter. Their ships are starting to interpret each other as threats. Sarah nodded. Phase 2. Deploy the Whisper drones. Thousands of small, autonomous devices emerged from the Ghost Fleet. Each drone was barely larger than a human hand, but they carried humanity's most sophisticated quantum technology. They attached themselves to Vraxian hulls, using the ship's own biological material as transmission mediums. The effect was catastrophic. The drones began broadcasting directly into the Vraxian neural networks, not with sound or electromagnetic waves, but with quantum-entangled signals that couldn't be blocked. The aliens' sophisticated sensory systems, evolved over millions of years, became their greatest vulnerability. They're experiencing what we programmed, Dr. Patel confirmed, monitoring the biological feedback. Every ship's crew is convinced they're under attack from within their own vessels. Their hierarchical command structure is collapsing. The Vraxian fleet's formation had completely broken down. Ships fired on their own allies, convinced they were seeing phantom enemies. The biological dampeners they'd grown to counter humanity's sonic attacks were worse than useless, they amplified the quantum signals, turning their own defenses against them. High Marshal Ktrix's voice came again, but this time it was fractured, uncertain. What are you doing to us? This is impossible. You're primitives. You can't. We're humanity, Sarah replied, her voice echoing through every Vraxian ship simultaneously. We spent centuries fighting ourselves, High Marshal. We learned that the most effective weapons don't destroy bodies, they break minds. The massive Vraxian command ship suddenly turned its weapons on its own escort vessels. Chaos spread through the alien fleet as command protocols collapsed. Ships began jumping to hyperspace randomly, their crews desperate to escape the phantom horrors that seemed to lurk in every shadow. They're retreating again, Morrison announced, but his satisfaction was tempered with concern. Though something tells me they'll be back. And angrier. Sarah's expression remained neutral as she studied the tactical display. The Vraxians were indeed retreating, but not in the same way as before. This time, they weren't just defeated, they were traumatized. Their mighty fleet, terror of 1,000 systems, had been unmade not by superior firepower, but by the subtle manipulation of their own fears. Send word to all Ghost Fleet vessels, she ordered. Begin preparations for Phase 3. The Vraxians will return with their entire empire behind them. And when they do... She paused, looking at the quantum readings that showed just how much of humanity's true capabilities remained hidden. When they do, we'll show them why Earth never needed to develop planet-killing weapons. We learned long ago that the mind is the deadliest battlefield of all. As the last Vraxian ships vanished into hyperspace, Dr. Patel approached the command station. The quantum entanglement network is stabilizing, Commander. We can now theoretically project our influence anywhere in the galaxy. Sarah nodded slowly. Good. Because the next phase isn't about defending Earth. It's about showing the galaxy why humanity chose to appear primitive. She turned to face her crew, her eyes reflecting the determination that had driven human evolution for millennia. We're not just fighting a war, we're rewriting the rules of warfare itself. And the Vraxians are about to learn why silence has always been humanity's greatest weapon. The stars seemed to pulse with quantum energy as the Ghost Fleet regrouped, preparing for a conflict that would reshape galactic civilization. In the vastness of space, humanity's true power wasn't in the weapons they showed, it was in the capabilities they had chosen to keep silent. The quantum sensors pulsed silently as Commander Sarah Chen led her elite team through the crystalline corridors of the Vraxian Fortress Station Aegis Prime. Their quantum stealth suits bent light and sound around them, making them invisible not just to sensors, but to the biological awareness of the living station itself. Primary neural nexus, 200 meters ahead, Dr. Patel's voice whispered through their quantum-entangled communications. Back at Lunar Base Echo, he monitored their progress through connected consciousness technology that humanity had kept hidden for generations. The Vraxians had returned as expected, but not with a fleet. They had constructed massive fortress stations throughout the solar system, each one a living citadel of biological technology. Their new strategy was to establish permanent footholds, making it impossible for humanity's tricks to drive them away again. They hadn't expected humans to simply walk into their command centers. Motion sensors detect heavy patrol activity ahead, Lieutenant Morrison reported, his quantum visor analyzing the station's defense patterns. They've upgraded their detection systems. Sarah smiled slightly. Irrelevant. Execute Ghost Protocol Alpha. Their suits shifted frequency, synchronizing with the station's own neural patterns. To any Vraxian sensors, they now registered as part of the station's biological processes. It was a level of technological sophistication that humanity had deliberately hidden from the galaxy, waiting for the moment when it would be most effective. The team moved through a group of Vraxian warriors as if they were ghosts, their presence registering only as a slight chill that made the alien sensory tendrils twitch. The massive warriors, encased in living armor that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, never noticed the humans walking among them. They still think we're primitives, Sarah subvocalized, her words carried instantly to her team through quantum entanglement. They've built these fortresses to resist our sonic attacks, never imagining we could simply step inside their command centers. They reached the neural nexus, a massive chamber where organic computers pulsed with synaptic energy. Vraxian officers moved between control interfaces, their movements confident and precise. They believed themselves completely secure within their living fortress. Begin the infiltration, Sarah ordered. Her team split up, each member moving to predetermined positions around the chamber. They removed quantum devices from their suits, devices that looked deceptively simple but contained technology that had taken humanity centuries to perfect. Deploying quantum seeds, Morrison reported. The devices activated, embedding themselves into the station's neural network. Unlike the crude sonic attacks of their first encounters, these weapons worked on a fundamental level, rewriting the quantum states of the station's organic processors. The effect was subtle at first. The station's lighting flickered slightly, its biological systems experiencing what the Vraxians would interpret as minor synaptic misfires. But as the quantum seed spread through the neural network, the changes became more profound. Neural corruption at 30%, Dr. Patel reported from Earth. The station's consciousness is beginning to fragment. Sarah watched as the first signs of confusion appeared among the Vraxian officers. Their biological interfaces were giving them conflicting information, showing phantom fleets where there were none, reporting system failures that didn't exist. The living fortress was beginning to dream, and its dreams were engineered by human consciousness architects. 50% corruption, Dr. Patel updated. The quantum seeds are replicating according to design. Similar reports coming in from all targeted fortress stations across the system. The Vraxian commander, a towering figure whose armor pulsed with command sigils, began barking orders as system after system reported impossible data. But the station's responses became increasingly erratic, its biological components unable to distinguish between reality and the quantum-induced hallucinations. Neural corruption at 70%, Dr. Patel announced. Initiating Phase 2. Sarah raised her hand, signaling her team. As one, they deactivated their quantum stealth fields, appearing like ghosts in the command center. The Vraxian officers froze, their sensory tendrils writhing in shock and disbelief. Impossible, the commander growled, his translator struggling with the emotional overtones in his voice. Our defenses were designed to stop armies, Sarah finished for him, her voice carrying easily in the suddenly silent chamber. You never considered that we might simply walk in. Humanity's greatest strength isn't in our weapons, Commander. It's in our ability to see possibilities where others see only walls. The station's lighting shifted to a deep crimson as the quantum seeds reached critical mass. Throughout the solar system, every Vraxian fortress station began experiencing the same phenomenon, their organic computers rewriting themselves according to human designs. Your fortress is now ours, Sarah announced, as her team moved to secure key positions around the neural nexus. In fact, all your fortresses are ours. We've reprogrammed their consciousness on a quantum level. They now respond to human commands while appearing to function normally to your central command. The Vraxian commander's armor pulsed with rage patterns. You're not primitives at all. No, Sarah agreed. We're something far more dangerous. We're a species that learned to hide its true capabilities, waiting for the right moment to reveal them. Your empire sees technology as a means of domination. We see it as a scalpel, to be used with precision. Throughout the solar system, Vraxian fortress stations continued to operate as if nothing had changed. But their organic computers now danced to human algorithms, their every function monitored and controlled through quantum entanglement networks that the aliens couldn't detect, let alone understand. Send word to High Marshal KTH Rix, Sarah ordered the commander. Tell him humanity is ready to negotiate. But remind him, what he's seen of our capabilities is still only the surface. We've spent centuries preparing for this moment, and we haven't even begun to show our true strength. As the quantum seeds completed their work, transforming the living fortresses into humanity's newest assets, Sarah looked out at the stars through the station's crystalline viewport. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had chosen to appear primitive for so long. Sometimes, the most effective power was the kind you never knew existed until it was too late. The Ghost Division had just changed the nature of galactic warfare, not through overwhelming force, but through the subtle art of walking unseen through enemy dreams. High Marshal KTH Rix stood before the Vraxian Imperial Council, his command sigils dulled with the shame of repeated failure. The massive chamber, carved from living crystal and pulsing with the collective consciousness of the Empire's highest leaders, had never before witnessed such unprecedented defeats. They control our fortresses, he reported, each word careful and measured. Not through conquest, but through transformation. The stations still appear to serve us, yet they dance to human commands. Meanwhile, in the quantum-shielded depths of Lunar Base Echo, Commander Sarah Chen watched the proceedings through humanity's secret network of consciousness observers. Dr. Patel's latest quantum interfaces allowed them to perceive the Vraxian Council meeting as if they were ghostly presences in the chamber itself. They're finally beginning to understand, Dr. Patel observed. Though they still haven't grasped the full scope of what they're facing. Sarah nodded. Initiate Symphony Protocol. It's time to show them why we called this Operation Orpheus. Across the galaxy, quantum nodes that humanity had secretly seeded over centuries began to activate. Each one was microscopic, having piggybacked on regular trade vessels and diplomatic missions, quietly waiting for this moment. The Vraxian Empire, like many others, had dismissed humans as clever primitives, never imagining that every trade agreement and cultural exchange was part of an elaborate preparation. The quantum network is synchronized, Morrison reported. All nodes are responding. In the Imperial Council chamber, the first subtle changes began. The living crystal walls, sensitive to psychic emanations, started to pulse with new patterns. The Vraxian leaders, their sensory tendrils extending in alarm, felt the shift in their collective consciousness. Something is wrong, one counselor announced, their translator struggling to convey the mix of fear and confusion. The Imperial Mind Web, it's changing. Sarah's voice, carried through quantum entanglement, seemed to emerge from the crystal walls themselves. Your empire spans 1,000 systems, yet you never questioned why humanity seemed content with just one. You saw our apparent limitations as weakness, never considering they might be choice. The Council Chamber's organic technology, like all Vraxian biotech, operated on principles of shared consciousness. But now that consciousness was being subtly reshaped, not through brute force, but through quantum manipulation of its fundamental nature. Impossible, Kth Rix growled. Our empire's mind web is secure. It's been developed over millennia. And seeded with our quantum nodes for centuries, Sarah interrupted. Every trade ship that visited Earth left with microscopic fragments of our technology. Every diplomatic exchange was an opportunity to extend our network. We didn't need to conquer your empire, you invited us in, one interaction at a time. The implications hit the Imperial Council like a physical blow. Their empire's greatest strength, the interconnected consciousness that linked all their worlds, had become a vulnerability. Humanity hadn't just prepared for this war, they had spent generations laying the groundwork for it. Symphony Phase 2, Sarah ordered. Throughout Vraxian space, the quantum nodes began their true work. In system after system, the biological computers that managed Vraxian civilization started experiencing what they could only interpret as enlightenment. New patterns of thought, carefully engineered by human consciousness architects, began spreading through the Imperial mind web. We're not here to destroy your empire, Sarah explained, her voice resonating through the quantum network. We're here to evolve it. Your species values hierarchy and dominance. We're showing you alternatives. The Council Chamber's crystals pulsed with new colors as the quantum transformation continued. The Vraxian leaders found their very thoughts being gently reshaped, not through force, but through the introduction of new possibilities they had never considered. The symphony is reaching critical resonance, Dr. Patel reported. Neural patterns across the empire are synchronizing with our quantum framework. In the Council Chamber, Kth Rix watched in astonishment as his fellow leaders began experiencing what humans had planned for generations. The Imperial mind web, once a tool of control and conquest, was becoming something new, a network of shared understanding and cooperation. You see, Sarah continued, humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our understanding that true power doesn't come from domination. It comes from transformation. The quantum network pulsed with new energy as the symphony reached its crescendo. Across Vraxian space, the rigid hierarchies that had defined their civilization for millennia began to dissolve, replaced by more fluid, adaptive structures. It wasn't conquest, it was evolution, carefully guided by humanity's hidden hand. Your empire won't fall, Sarah assured them. It will transcend. The question is, will you choose to transcend with it? In Lunar Base Echo, Sarah watched as the Symphony Protocol continued its work. Humanity had spent centuries appearing primitive, using that time to seed the galaxy with the tools of transformation. The Vraxian Empire had sought to conquer Earth, never realizing they were simply the first to trigger humanity's grand design. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Morrison reported. Other species are noticing the changes in Vraxian space. They're sending observers. Sarah smiled slightly. Good. Let them observe. The symphony isn't just for the Vraxians, it's the beginning of a galactic transformation. One that humanity has been orchestrating since we first looked up at the stars and decided to play a very, very long game. The stars themselves seemed to pulse with new purpose as humanity's true nature was finally revealed. They weren't conquerors or primitives, they were architects of consciousness, shapers of civilizations, waiting patiently for the right moment to begin their symphony of transformation. The Galactic Conclave had never before witnessed such an assembly. Representatives from 100 species gathered in the vast chamber of the Vraxian Imperial Palace, now transformed into a nexus of interstellar diplomacy. The living crystal walls pulsed with the combined consciousness of dozens of civilizations, all drawn by humanity's unprecedented revelation. Commander Sarah Chin stood at the center of it all, her quantum stealth suit deactivated, no longer needing to hide humanity's true nature. Besides her, High Marshal Kth Rix, now bearing the new title of Harmony Coordinator, stood as a living testament to the transformation his species had undergone. For centuries, Sarah began, her voice carried through both conventional translators and the quantum network. The galaxy saw humanity as primitives who had barely mastered space flight. You watched us struggle with our first colonies, debate our place among the stars, and seemingly marvel at technologies your species had mastered generations ago. The assembled representatives shifted uneasily, their various sensory organs focused intently on the human speaker. Through the quantum network, Sarah could sense their mixture of fear, awe, and dawning understanding. What you saw, she continued, was a performance centuries in the making. Every trade agreement, every diplomatic mission, every seemingly primitive human vessel that visited your worlds, all of them carried fragments of what we called the Orpheus Protocol. Dr. Patel stepped forward, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber. It showed the true extent of humanity's quantum network, a vast web of interconnected nodes spanning the known galaxy. Your civilizations built empires of matter and energy, Patel explained. We built an empire of consciousness. Each quantum node, too small to detect, was designed not to control or conquer, but to understand. To learn. To prepare. The display shifted, showing how human quantum technology had gradually integrated with the biological computers, consciousness networks, and AI systems of various species. Not as parasites or invaders, but as silent partners in an evolution none of them had recognized was occurring. The Vraxian invasion of our system wasn't a surprise, Sarah revealed. It was a catalyst we had been waiting for. A chance to demonstrate why humanity chose to appear weak when we could have shown strength. High Marshal Kth Rix stepped forward, his transformed armor now pulsing with patterns of harmony rather than dominance. They did not defeat us, he announced to the assembly. They awakened us. Showed us possibilities we had never imagined. The quantum network hummed with increased activity as Sarah activated the final phase of humanity's grand design. Throughout the chamber, representatives gasped as they felt their consciousness expand, connecting with others in ways that transcended traditional communication. This is humanity's true power, Sarah explained. Not weapons or territory or resources. We learned early in our development that the most profound changes come not from forcing compliance, but from offering transformation. Every species in this room has been part of an experiment in consciousness evolution that began the moment we first reached the stars. The holographic display showed how human quantum technology had subtly influenced the development of galactic civilization. Trade routes had been optimized, conflicts had been gently redirected, and species had been unconsciously guided toward greater cooperation and understanding. We could have revealed ourselves at any time, Sarah continued. Could have used our quantum network to dominate or control. Instead, we chose to wait, to guide, to prepare the galaxy for a transformation that could only come when all species were ready to embrace it. The chamber's crystal walls pulsed with new patterns as the quantum network reached its full potential. Representatives from warring species found themselves understanding each other on fundamental levels. Ancient rivalries dissolved in the face of shared consciousness and understanding. The age of empires and conquest is ending, Sarah announced. Not through war or dominance, but through evolution. Humanity didn't hide our capabilities out of fear, we hid them because true power lies not in showing strength, but in knowing when to reveal it. Dr. Patel activated the final sequences of the Orpheus Protocol. Throughout the galaxy, quantum nodes synchronized, creating a harmony of consciousness that transcended individual species. It wasn't control or invasion, it was an offering, a chance for every civilization to evolve beyond their limitations. We are not conquerors, Sarah concluded, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of human preparation. We are catalysts. Every primitive trade ship, every seemingly outdated human colony, every diplomatic mission that made you underestimate us, they were all notes in humanity's grand symphony. A symphony that's only now reaching its true crescendo. The assembled representatives, their consciousness expanded through the quantum network, finally understood. Humanity hadn't needed warships or energy weapons or vast territories. They had transformed the galaxy not through force of arms, but through the subtle power of guided evolution. As the galactic conclave embraced its new reality, the stars themselves seemed to pulse with new purpose. Humanity had revealed their true nature not as warriors or conquerors, but as architects of consciousness, shapers of civilizations. They had proven that the most profound victory comes not from defeating an enemy, but from transforming them into something greater than they ever imagined possible. In the quantum-enhanced silence of the chamber, the thunder of humanity's true power echoed across the galaxy, not in weapons or warfare, but in the quiet revolution of minds awakening to new possibilities. The species that others had dismissed as primitives had orchestrated the greatest transformation in galactic history, proving that true strength lies not in the power you display, but in the wisdom to know when to reveal it.